Hello and welcome back, gamers. How are we doing? We've got another event preview video as we've got Star Series just round the corner, starting in just a couple of days as well from now. So pretty exciting times. The return of Starladder to the top end of Counter-Strike. It's been a hot minute since we've seen them in CS. So it's good to have them back as well, and it's good to have an event under their belt. We've got Budapest as well kickstarting. So without further ado, let's get into all the action as well. So here's what we have got. So this is kind of an interesting time, actually, when we look at this event as a whole. It's actually a really good opportunity to secure some points, especially some of these sides that I want to call them sort of fringe teams where they stand overall. It's a pretty simple setup. It's a $500,000 prize pool in Budapest in Hungary. 8 teams going to be playing, and of course from the September 18th to 21st, so a pretty short event, all things considered, but of course that is ultimately the calendar at the moment as well these days. But let's run through some of these teams as well. Of course, Na'Vi are the main big hitter and probably considered to be the favorites, or not probably, definitely considered to be the favorites heading in towards this event. NIP, Bait, OG, 9, Paravision, Gentlemate, and Passion UA as well. Now, for 4 of these sides, they came through this qualifier as well, which I was a part of, and it was a pretty fun one. It was a pretty interesting time as well. Technically, 5 teams came through this qualifier because NIP also came through as well. They started the qual, as you can see, actually, I'll scroll down here. They were in Group A. They already played a game against Nine. They then got a forfeit win against Passion UA, who mid-tournament, quite literally after one game, they disbanded. Then, of course, a few days later, signed that cold call, right? But they disbanded and could have dropped their Ukrainian roster. So NIP got a forfeit win there. And then on the day they were scheduled to play big, because of some team dropping out from the kind of already invited teams, NIP were actually the next team up in terms of VRS. They got an automatic invite alongside Na'Vi to the event. So it was a little bit chaotic. But, of course, our teams are invited due to VRS. Na'Vi, NIP, Bait, and Passion UA, of course, the old Complexity core, right? Of course, Passion UA, who forfeited their games in the qual, but are actually playing the tournament, of course, due to the VRS. Very chaotic, very kind of confusing as a whole, but this is how things panned out. It was a pretty simple format. Group play in towards just a decider match. Big fumbled the bag against 9. That was pretty rough. OG looked very, very solid. I'll give them credit. Iberian Soul, same for them. This is a side that actually have looked really decent. And Paravision too as well. And of course, netting our teams here. Gentlemate, of course, this is a side that have actually been kind of interesting, right? I think as a whole, they're a side who won Epic Land, but they've got a lot of familiar faces from that Spanish scene. Martineza, of course, primarily being one of those ones who's kind of made that big name for himself. But Alex and Mopos have just been around for ages, right? I mean, if anyone who's even been following CS since kind of the early go days, these guys were around. So as a whole, it's a really interesting event. Na'Vi have got to be considered the big heavy favorites. There's no two ways about that. But then it's actually about who can be the real dark horses here. NIP, I think they've had actually a kind of a fantastic year up until recently, and I'll show you what I mean as well. NIP's recent form has actually been a little shaky. Look, there's quite a few losses here. Loss to NIG at Frag, fair enough. They're also playing with Smooth as a stand-in, and the rest of those wins are sort of whatever, but it's Draculan. 2 losses, right? Not what you want to see. We're looking at these, obviously the qualifiers as well, not great. I am Cologne, lost to RV, lost to Aurora. Sure, beat Heroic, that was pretty funny, but as a whole, not great. This Venom loss as well was not good to see as well. So this is a side that actually recently are coming in towards the tournament in bad form. As much as if you scale, I guess kind of sort of zoom out and look at the scale of this year, the year's been fantastic for them. They started off the year at like 200th ranked in the world, completely unranked basically, as they got a new core. But recently they've looked pretty bad. So I'm a little concerned about them, and they are definitely worth keeping an eye on. On the flip side, a side that I always love to watch is this OG team. I think recently they've looked fantastic. Kristen's easily one of the best young callers that we got in Counter-Strike right now, and he continues to be such a menace. We look at Nikodos, who I think actually individually is a fantastic AWPer and continues to be quite a kind of a real top performer for them, but they actually have a lot of stability across the roster. You look at Adam B as somebody who can pop off, Aristos who can pop off, and Spook is such a secure factor on this team. Lambert as a coach has done excellently as a whole. There's a lot to like here as well. So if I'm being honest, as much as they come in as sort of the 4th ranked team, I might put OG as a bit my dark horse to at least make a bit of a run here as well. Could they make the final? Legitimately, maybe yes as well. Bait are another one of the sides you can't really sleep on, but I do feel for Bait, they do so well in online. They do well in the early stages of a qual, but I just don't think they have that depth at the moment to go late. So it's a tough time for them. They need to break this sort of mental block. They're also a side that, MPL does all the calling on this team, but when you actually look at this Bait team, if things go bad for them, they struggle to call themselves out of a bad situation. So for Bait, if they get into a bit of trouble, get into a rot of form, especially kind of in the more macro sense of the tournament, that concerns me just a little bit. So worth keeping an eye on there. 9, they would have been a real dark horse for me. However, they're of course not playing with Fuzi anymore. He got called back to Wildcard in whatever the hell Wildcard are doing. One of the craziest stories about them using ChatGPT to pick their roster. Mental times over at Wildcard. But poor Fuzi, who's just stuck in the middle of it. If he was still on 9, he would cook, and this team would actually look really decent. I don't know what to expect that from Modo. Don't know how much time he's really had with the side to work with. So expectations are probably relatively minimal for me as a whole. But we'll see. I'm not going to completely discount it, but I'm not fully sold. Paravision, now this is a team I actually like. Sure, James gets a lot of stick in terms of his calling style, but Belchinok and Nota, these two youngsters are kind of stuck with him in this kind of core from the beginning. We're actually really good. Belchinok in particular, I think, is actually a real guy who can step up and shine. Nota has his moments, doesn't always shine, but he really does have his moments, and he can have these real pop-off maps, so worth keeping an eye on. And the two newer guys, especially AW is the newest, also really starting to look quite comfortable around this James system. And of course, Dastan being the coach, of course, came with him from VP. Interesting times at Paravision. I always think they're a bit of a sleeper team. They can make Counter-Strike really difficult to play for a lot of teams, and especially some of these teams around here who are in that sort of tier 1.5-ish spot. That's exactly what to expect out from them. Gentlemates, touched them already. I think they actually have a decent skill ceiling as a whole, but do I expect a deep run here? I don't know, if I'm being completely honest. They're a really difficult team to predict right now. I think they do quite well in online Counter-Strike. Look good at LAN, at Epic LAN. Doesn't mean loads, if I'm being frank, but I'm not going to completely discount them. I think Martineza can look really good. As much as he's probably a bit of an unsung hero on this side, I think Davy G actually has some really pop-off maps. He can really step up in a big way. It's definitely worth keeping an eye out for. Can they go super deep? I don't know. I'm going to assume no, if I'm being completely frank. And our final team, Passion UA, of course, we've got that core from Complexity with Kavem as well alongside. So essentially just a direct trade of 60 for Kavem. Interesting time. I think, it's a bold move by Passion UA, one of the roguest pickups for them, kind of dropping their Ukrainian side and going for this Complexity core. I'm really interested to see what they can do, but fundamentally, do they have a high skill ceiling? Yeah, I mean, technically speaking, if this was kind of like the start of the year last year, they would be considered the second best team in this tournament, right? So that's the thing you've kind of got to take away from this as a whole. Skill ceiling wise, they really can pop off. And Kavem's, he's nice, man. When he gets going, he looks really, really decent himself. So just worth keeping an eye on. Could be kind of interesting. This is how the prize pool pans out as well. We'll look at kind of how the bracket goes. I'll go for a rough sort of prediction for me. Na'Vi 9. We're going to go Na'Vi. Passion UA versus Gentlemates. That one's tough, but my heart wants to lean Gentlemates here, but my head says Passion UA are the sides to go for here. This cold core, we know what they can do when they pop off. They're also very good at kind of playing down against opponents, so definitely worth keeping an eye on for. So I'm going to go Passion UA there as well. Bait Paravision, it's a tough one here. I think it's actually relatively even. I'm going to lean ever so slightly Paravision. As much as that seems rogue to say, James did a really decent job in the past about calling MPL. So worth keeping an eye on there. And then NIP OG, also a really difficult one in itself as well. And I don't know, man. It's tough because, you look at these results for NIP. It doesn't really... It doesn't spark a lot of confidence in this side, I think, is ultimately the thing to say, right? Wrinkle looks like he struggles, but I think at times Wrinkle can pop off on LAN. But if I'm going current form, I'm actually going to go OG, as much as that might seem rogue to say. So, Paravision OG, then I'm going to lead OG there, so they make it all the way to upper final. Na'Vi, of course, to join them. Na'Vi go to the grand final. I might go OG to be my dark horse to make it all the way through to that final and meet them there. But I think Na'Vi ultimately should be the team to win this. As we always do, we're going to finish off a little bit of fantasy as well. This is the team I have gone for. I've gone for Nikodos on the Orb, Immer as well as my sort of star player on the attacker role, Kaspersky on defender. Of course, that youngster has been absolutely fantastic. If he can pop off the way we know he can, he actually doesn't really seem to be affected by LAN. I saw him at Elisa Espo and he was so calm and collected, so I'm expecting big things from him. Nota, I think, is a bit of an unsung hero on his side. I think he can really get going, and he can have some really pop-off maps, so keep an eye on him. It's just about whether he can transition that to LAN. And last man at Davi G, I've gone for a bronze. Of course, I needed it monetarily speaking, but I know Davi G can have some nice moments. I know he can have some nice maps. Doesn't always do it. Actually, more rarely does it, if we're being honest, but I have belief that he can pop off. So that's the team I'm going to go for as well. So I'm interested to see how it kind of pans out. But this is where we're going to go with this one. But either way, Star Series starting in just a couple of days now as well. So worth keeping an eye on. Like I mentioned, kickstarts things on September 18th. It's only a quick tournament until the 21st as well. So just 4 days in and out. But it's a little bit of a pre-look, let's say, in towards the major. Of course, it's going to be held in the same arena in December, or November into December, so sort of exciting times as well. First introduction of Starladder back into the fray as well in the top end of Counter-Strike. Exactly what we want to see. Either way, ladies and gents, thank you very much for watching. You know the drill. Like and subscribe, all of the good stuff. Until next time, see you soon.